Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Branja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vajracharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BPT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vajracharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavina ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Nelson, go into the lounge and get the yellow drum. It's in there and we're going to need it for the kirtan later. Okay. Yeah, maybe you could get that clock and put it over here. Thank you. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 15th day of October 2024 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Text 13 at the bottom of page 543. Geyam Yat Tat Pravakshyami Yaj Gyatparmitam Ashnute Anadi Matparam Brahma Na Sattan Nasad Uchyate Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami Yadgyatparmitamashnute Anadimat Padam Brahma Nasattan Nasaruchyate Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami Yadgyatparmitamashnute Anadimat Padam Brahma Nasattan Nasaruchyate Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami Yadgyatparmitamashnute Anadimat Padam Brahma Nasattan Nasaruchyate Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami Yadgyatparmitam Ashnute Anadimat Param Brahma Nasattan Nasaruchyate. Go ahead. Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami Gyatvarmitam. Yeah. Yadgyatparmitam Ashnate Anadimat Param Brahma Nasattan Nasaruchyate. Anyone online? Chad?
Geyam Yatta Pravakshyami
Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami
Yagnatam Ritamashnite
Yadgyatparmitamashnute
Anadima Param Brahma
Anadimat Param Brahma
Nasattan Nasad Uchyate.
Nasattan Nasaruchyate. Okay.
Tapas is on.
Pravakshami
Geyam Yattat Pravakshyami
Yadgyatparmitam Ashnute
Yadgyatparmitamashnute
Anadimat Param Brahma
Anadimat Param Brahma
Nasattan Nasad Uchyate.
Nasattan Nasaruchyate. Tapas, is that you?
Yes, Prabhu.
When are we going to see you again?
Hopefully November 1st week. I'm trying my best to come as fast as I can, Prabhu.
Okay. Word by words, just follow along. Geyam, the knowable, yat, which, tat, that, pravakshami, I shall now explain, yat, which, gatva, knowing, amritam, nectar, ashnute, one tastes, anadi, beginningless, matparam, subordinate to me, Brahma, spirit, na, neither, sat, cause, tat, that, na, nor a sat, effect, uchite is said to be. Translation. The Lord said to Arjuna, I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Purport. The Lord has explained the field of activities and the knower of the field. He has also explained the process of knowing the knower of the field of activities. Now he begins to explain the knowable, first the soul and then the supersoul. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the supersoul, one can relish the nectar of life. As explained in the second chapter, the living entity is eternal. That is also confirmed here. There is no specific date at which the jiva was born, nor can anyone trace out the history of the jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is beginningless. The Vedic literature confirms this. Najayate mriyate va vipaschit. Katha Upanishad 1:2-18. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge. The Supreme Lord as the Supersoul is also stated in the Vedic literature. Shvedashvatar Upanishad 6:16, to be Pradhana Chaturgya Patir Guneshaha, the chief knower of the body and the master of the three modes of material nature. In the Smriti it is said, Dasa Bhuto Harer Eva Nanyasyaiva Kadachana. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings. Therefore, the description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul, and when the word Brahman is applied to the living entity, it is to be understood that he is Vijnana Brahma, as opposed to Ananda Brahma. Ananda Brahma is the Supreme Brahman Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Nelson, can you go outside and make sure that they just keep it down a little bit, because there's a lot of, I don't want to dampen their enthusiasm, but Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we've been through these 5 verses 8 to 12, which describes knowledge. This is like a foundation. There's many of these describe or are repeated in the 12th chapter. They're repeating the 12th chapter where Krishna gave a whole list of qualities in which he said, anyone devotee who possesses these is very dear to me, and that's the whole point. So we can study those ourselves. They're important to know. And Prabhupada gives a wonderful, extensive purport in detail describing all of these. And now he's going to talk about the knowable. In text number 3 of this chapter, Krishna says, I am also the Kshetragya. There's 6 questions that Arjuna asks. Let's see, we review those because the whole chapter is based on those. And I think that's at the very beginning. Arjuna has a list, text 1. Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge. So, Prakriti is this material nature. You see, Prakriti also describes the living entity. We are also part of nature. Nature means basically the energy of Krishna. So, but we are a categorically different kind of energy than, the material energy. We sense that even without any training in Krishna consciousness. There's all of these inanimate energies. There's earth, there's hard matter, there's water, there's liquids, there's air, there's fire, all these different things. We generally don't include our own mind in part of those energies, but that's also part of it. Mind, intelligence, and ego, those are fine energies. And we have all of these energies in our body. We have bones, we have blood, we have all the hard matter, fire of digestion, all of these things. So this goes up to make the field of our understanding. Now, of course, the outer world is also part of the field, but we interact and sense the reality of that world through the senses of this body. So here in this chapter, the Kshetra, the field, is described as the body itself. And then comes this, the knowers of the field, Kshetra Gya. The word Gya means knower. You can see that the word Jnana similarly means knowledge. And Krishna describes that there's 2 knowers. There's 2 knowers in everybody. We ourselves, as individual souls, minute particles of spirit, and the Supersoul. I am also the knower in everybody, Krishna says. And then he says, and I think we're going to have some revisions here. O scion of Bharata, means descendant of Bharat, King Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knowers is called knowledge. That is my opinion. The two knowers, you see. So that's very important. In other words, this is knowledge that as devotees, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we accept this as true, because this is why chanting and hearing is so effective, because the Lord is there in our heart. He's understanding, oh, they're chanting my name sincerely, so then He blesses us with less attraction to the material energy, removal of the anartas and the abhadras, the inauspicious things in the heart, all of these old grievances and the things that we're holding on to, and all the material desires, they become weakened. The more that we hear sincerely from the right source, from the pure devotees, from Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is how it's working, and we're understanding the whole structure here of our own life. And then comes the idea, well, how can we know about these things? You see, how can we deepen our knowledge? And that's where 8 to 12 comes through. There are aspects of knowledge, but there are also aspects of the means by which we can increase our knowledge. And so we can review those. And now he's expanding on what is knowable. What is knowable is not just this field, but also the knowers of the field and the spiritual world, which we can't perceive. We've been alienated for so many millions of years. So he's beginning to explain that. I will now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. So the real knowable is not just this material energy, but the spirit behind it and what is suffusing it. That's the idea. It's beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So Prabhupada explains here, the Lord has explained the field of activities and the knowers of the field. He's also explained the process of knowing the knowers of the field of activities. Now he begins to explain the knowable. So beyond simply the field here, there's also the original knower of the field, the Supersoul, and Krishna himself, who is unlimitedly knowable. We can never know enough about him. So that's what we're really after. And the amazing thing is that all of that is invisible. In the material vision, we don't see any of that. That's why, especially today, atheism is so prominent. People may call themselves religious, but really to believe in the full God as we understand it, as a supreme person with pastimes and relationships in his own world, and no eternal damnation, none of this fear-based religion. This is love-based religion. That's all hidden to the ignorant soul, by the curtain of Maya. So this is a systematic way of how this will be described, how to lift that curtain. Okay, let's see. There's a thing called pradhan, which is the unmanifested three modes of material nature before all of this manifestation takes place. The details of how the creation takes place is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We can study it. So now let's just read. Oh, here we go. Can you? We need to get a more soundproof room. All right, if there's no discussion on this, let's go on to text 14. Krishna explains. Sarvatak panipadam tat. Text 14, bottom of 544. Sarvatok shishiro mukham. Sarvatak shruti malloke. Sarvamavrittatishtati. So before I read this, we have to remember one thing, that the Bhagavad Gita is often called the Gita-Upanishad, because it contains all the essential knowledge of the Upanishads. And so we hear Upanishadic knowledge and Upanishadic echoes in these verses. And this one, I think Prabhupada may quote. No, he doesn't quote it, but I'll quote it later. The Upanishadic verse that is very similar to this. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything. Purport. As the sun exists, diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the Supersoul, or Supreme Personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the first great teacher, Brahma, down to the small ants. There are unlimited heads, legs, hands, and eyes, and unlimited living entities. All are existing in and on the Supersoul. Therefore, the Supersoul is all-pervading. The individual soul, however, cannot say that he has his hands, legs, and eyes everywhere. That is not possible. If he thinks that under ignorance he is not conscious that his hands and legs are diffused all over, but when he attains to proper knowledge he will come to that stage, his thinking is contradictory. This means that the individual soul, having become conditioned by material nature, is not supreme. The supreme is different from the individual soul. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit. The individual soul cannot. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that if anyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, he accepts it. If the Lord is a far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotence of the Lord. Even though he is situated in his own abode, far, far away from earth, he can extend his hand to accept what anyone offers. That is his potency. In the Brahma Samhita 537, it is stated, Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhutaha. Although he is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet, he is all-pervading. The individual soul cannot claim that he is all-pervading. Therefore, this verse describes the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul. So there's one verse from the Upanishads, Apanipada Javana Grihita, Apanipada Savana Grihita. I'm sorry, I forget the Sanskrit for the next line. But he says, although he doesn't have hands and feet like we have, he can run faster than anyone, and he can grab anything from anywhere. You see? He has these transcendental hands and transcendental feet. And that's why the devotees who work with the deities closely, and make offerings on the altar, they're having faith, that he's actually accepting that. Even if he just sees it, with his seeing he can eat. There's another verse in the Brahma Samhita, famous one, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittamanti, that any of his senses can perform the functions of all the senses. So Krishna's on the altar, you see, and the devotees, the prasadam has been prepared, the bhoga has been prepared with great love and devotion, and then it's offered with love and devotion by the pujari. And so Krishna, he sees that love and devotion in there. He's not really hungry for the food, he's hungry for the love. And he says, this has been really prepared with love, and it's been offered with love, so let me eat it. So he eats it by looking at it and perceiving it that way, and he tastes it. That's why we can also then have the remnants. Nothing is gone, Although there are pastimes where sometimes he actually eats. There's this wonderful pastime, I forget the names now, Raghunath. There's the father, the Lord Chaitanya's Leela. So the father is a devotee, and they have little deities in the home, and he has a little son, maybe 6 years old. And so the father has to go out, and he says, okay, you make the offering. And make sure that the deity eats, So the little boy rings the bell, says the mantras in his own way, and then he leaves the deity room. But then he peeks in to see is he actually eating, and he's not eating. The food is still there. So finally he gets impatient. He says, "Eat, eat, eat," and he's so sincere that the deity actually eats, and there's nothing left, on the plate. So the father comes home and he says, "Did you make the offering?" "Yes, I made the offering." So he looks on the altar and there's nothing on the plate. Well, what happened? Well, you told me to make sure that he accepted it, and he did. You see? So the father is in ecstasy. So he makes again. And again, the same thing happened, and it's eaten, So later on, Lord Chaitanya, this is one of his great devotees. Unfortunately, I forget the exact name. I'm sorry. And the son is there. Little boy's playing, and he says, "Well, who's the father and who's the son?" So the father says he names his son as the real father because he was more advanced spiritually. He had the great faith that he had to eat. You see. It's a great pastime. It's rare that that happens. Then the other one, the more famous one even, is Lord Chaitanya. In his on his trip to Jagannath Puri from Navadvip, after he took sannyas, his mother was heartbroken because he's the last one left. Her oldest son, Vishwarup, took sannyas, went to South India, but then he passed. And then when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, the father was so heartbroken, he passed. So it's just the mother and Lord Chaitanya's wife there, his second wife. But then he takes sannyas, and he leaves the mother with the Vishnu Priya, the second wife, and so she's also heartbroken. So she begs, she asks him for one favor, that he make Jagannath Puri his center of activities, his home base, so that you'll get news of him so often, because it's not that far, So he agrees to that. So after traveling and preaching and teaching Sanatana Goswami and everything, he settles in Jagannath Puri. And he orders Lord Nityananda, now you go and preach in Bengal. I can't go there because my mother told me to stay here. So Lord Nityananda wanted to stay with Lord Chaitanya in Puri, but he surrendered and he took his whole crew. He has a whole group, And they wandered all the way. It's the whole story how they finally got to Bengal and they preached there. So anyway, so along the way, when they first were going to Puri, they went to a temple called Chirachora Gopinath. Chirachora Gopinath. Now, what does Chirachora mean? Do you know? What is Chora? The thief. Yeah. The deity who stole the sweet rice. No, it was his sweet rice, but he stole it. So there's a great devotee, Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri is Lord Chaitanya's Param Guru. His actual guru was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri. So Madhavendra Puri is a very important figure in Lord Chaitanya Lila. So when he went to Vrindavan, he wasn't speaking at all. He wasn't begging anyway. He was just chanting. He wasn't begging anything. So Lord Krishna saw he was fasting. So he came as a little beautiful boy, and offered him some milk. And Madhavendra Puri accepted it. He said, "My mother told me to give you some milk. She saw you fasting." Okay. So then he left, and Madhavendra Puri realized that this was Krishna himself. So after drinking the milk, he kept the pot. He broke the pot, and each day he would eat a little piece of it. Actually, he did that also with the pot of kheer. So that boy then Krishna appeared to him in a dream and told him, because when the Muslims would come, they had to hide the deities or take them away because they were going to break the temples and smash the deities. This was that time when the Muslims were ruling. So the deity was saying, "I've been buried in this forest for many, many years. Now please excavate me and make a temple for me." This is Krishna speaking to him in Madhavendra in a dream. And so he wakes up and he looks in the place in the forest, and there was, it was there, but he needed some help. So he got the villagers to come and excavate the deity. They were astounded to see the beautiful deity of Gopal, I think. And I think they put him on Govardhan Hill, and they erected a temporary temple, and all the villagers would come and offer him the food. And this is, Annakuta. Annakuta is meaning a mountain of food. This is also what the Govardhan Puja is called. It's a mountain of food. Everybody eats, even the dogs. Might everybody eat, So then, so Madhavendra Puri is very happy. Brahmins came. He initiated them into the deity worship, and they became the pujaris for this deity. So then Gopal appears to him in a dream, another dream. A lot of dreams, and he says, "I'm still very hot. I was buried for so long. I'm still very hot. Go to Jagannath Puri and bring back some sandalwood paste for me." So I said, "Okay, it's my order. I got to go. It's a long trek. From that city where he is in." And so, but he goes, and he has a couple of helpers. And somehow they negotiated, all these tax collectors and the Muslims trying to stop him, but he went to, it was a big ordeal. They went to Puri, they begged 80 pounds of sandalwood, and they started on their way back to Vrindavan. And along the way, they stopped at the Chirachora Gopinath temple. And they recognized Madhavendra Puri gave him, some pots, all the pots of sweet rice, and he gave them to his helpers. He had another dream, and in his dream, Gopal, he appears in his dream and says, "Oh, you don't have to carry it all the way back here. I and Gopinath are the same. You just give it to the Bajaris there, and during the summer they'll put it on the Gopinath Didi, and I'll feel cool also because we're actually the same." So he was ready to carry it, all the way back to Vrindavan, but he said, "Okay, this is the order of Gopal," so he gave it to the Bajaris. We're very happy to, get this sandalwood, which is so cooling in the middle of the summer. So they happily, grind the sandalwood. So that's another instance in which, and actually what happened was, I forgot to mention that Gopinath, Madhavendra Puri was in the temple, and he was thinking of tasting this special kheer that was made so that he could prepare it for Gopal. But as soon as he did so, he said, "Oh, what an offense. I was desiring to taste the offering to the deity before," and he was in ecstasy, wow, and he drank it, and that's actually the pot that he broke into pieces, and he would take a little piece every day. So there's things that are going on. So the Lord is every place with his hands, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything. So I remember reading the introduction, when I first read the introduction to this book, and there's several things that stuck out. It's a wonderful essay. Prabhupada dictated that before he even had the movement. He was uptown. He didn't have this 26th Avenue or anything. Someone gave him a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're really big, bulky, and everything. They're meant to stay in one place. So he had that, and so he used it to record this essay. It's like at least an hour and a half long recording, maybe 2 hours. And then he had to go out, do some shopping, whatever. And he came back, and someone had stolen they broke into his room and stolen the tape recorder. But they left the most valuable thing, the tape. And that tape was later played on another, and was recorded and typed out. So that was actually a blessing, because he was there, and he really hadn't made much headway in the movement. But he became discouraged from living there because it could happen again, And meanwhile, from downtown, the devotees had heard, oh, there's this new Swami uptown, and so they invited him down, and that's when he started later 26th Avenue. The whole thing took off. So it was Krishna's arrangement that he got burglarized. All right. So going on, I was explaining how early on when I read that introduction, there's one thing that really stood out to me. And Prabhupada said the Supersoul is in everyone's heart. And he's always there, and he knows everything. Everything that we're thinking, everything that we're doing. So to really be conscious of Krishna's presence in our lives, that's what Krishna consciousness means. And that whatever we do, it's within the program of Krishna consciousness. Krishna can understand what we're thinking about. He says, think of me, always, and you'll be with me, and you'll get so much blessings, So that's the hard part, because there's so many other things we're used to thinking about, and we have so many other things going on. But to always remember that Krishna's watching, he's present, and that he's our best friend. It's like, it's the most frightening thing to think that the CIA and the FBI have developed their surveillance so that they're always listening, to your phone calls and whatever you write, in the emails. And like the Chinese, they have cameras everywhere, they're watching everything. So they're trying to be the Supersoul, right? But they're not your best friend. That's the problem. You can't trust. You have to complete trust that Krishna has our best interest at heart. And even though something bad may happen, we lose something, Krishna's trying to help me become detached from all these things, This is a very important verse in the Bhagavatam. Tattenu kampam susamikshmano bunjana eva amrikutam vipakam ridbhag vabhubhir bidadan namaste jivetiyo mukti pradesadaya bhak. This is part of Brahma's prayers to Krishna in the 14th chapter. So he's saying there that tattenu kampam susamikshmano, one should always see that whatever happens to us is actually the mercy of Krishna. Whether it may be something very favorable, in our life, and now we can get a good job or whatever it may be, or something unfavorable. We come down with a disease. Well, if something happens bad to us, he says, "Oh, isn't it? Krishna's so kind. Yes, I had COVID, but luckily he inspired me to get the vaccine, so it wasn't so bad. But but this was teaching me. This was just a small taste of my karma. I was actually due to suffer much worse, but he just gave me a taste, And then when good things happen, he says, "Oh, Krishna's so kind. He's giving me more facility to serve him." So in every case, you remain favorable toward Krishna. And someone who can maintain this attitude throughout his life is sure going back to Godhead. It's just like someone who inherits something. You just stay alive. So Prabhupada says, stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and you'll inherit the kingdom of God, so to speak. So that's an important thing. Yes, he knows everything, every thought and everything, but he's our best well-wisher. And if he sees and he understands, we're making an effort to understand him, we're hearing about him, chanting, trying to be Krishna, he will help us in many ways. Just like this temple. This is a gift from Prabhupada, from his efforts, from his devotees, and it's a facility for us to come closer to Krishna. All right, so we go on. If there's no questions or comments. Sarvendriya gunabhasam Sarvendriya vivarjitam Asaktam sarvabhritchaiva Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. So he's describing the Supersoul now. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Purport. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life, they are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called nirguna. Guna means the material modes, but his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all our sensory activities, he has his transcendental senses, which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.19 in the verse Apanipado Javano Grihita. That's the one that I forgot. Apanipado Javano Grihita. The Supreme Personality of God has no hands, apani, which are materially contaminated, but he has his hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. You see? Apani, but grahita. He has no hands, but he accepts. You see? And then the other one is, he doesn't go through this. Pada means feet. He has no feet, but javana. He runs faster than anyone else. He has these transcendental hands, transcendental feet. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the Supersoul. He has no material eyes, but he has eyes. Otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being, and he knows what we have done in the past, what we're doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. This is confirmed. Prabhupada would always say also confirmed, but confirmed means also said, right? Also stated. So we're editing out these extra alsos. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel throughout space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has his eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms, there we go, the Bhagavad Gita confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his eternal form, called Satchidananda Vigraha. He is full of all opulence. He is the proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. These are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activity. As far as we can understand from the Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or legs, he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. Due to materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists, who are still materially affected, cannot understand the personality of Godhead. So actually, this idea of being able to see the Lord, being able to see the transcendental things that are always there, when we become purified and attain a spiritual knowledge, I'm always reminded when I hear about that of my early days. I grew up near New York on Long Island, and we would go in periodically to the museums there. There's so many wonderful museums. And, there would be paintings there. We go to a museum of, I forget the names of the museum, but we see classic paintings from Rembrandt. They had sometimes, very valuable paintings. And they were always fascinating. And then when I was, 16, 17, my parents bought me this set of books about art. Just the different eras of art, the different schools of painting, and what the meaning is of some of the content that's not so obvious. So I learned more about these artists. So then when I would go to the museums, I would see them with more of the eyes of knowledge, and you would see so much more. And the same thing happened, well, no, not so extensively, with music. Indian music, I became fascinated. Ravi Shankar is the name? Yeah, remember Ravi Shankar? Huh? He came here? It was a concert? Yeah, that was before I came. But I was fascinated with the ragas, and especially the drummer, Ala Raka, the fascinating tabla. Where did I see it? On TV. Where else? A little black and white TV, Huh? No, I didn't meet him. But I'm saying I became interested in Indian music, and I learned a little bit about the different ragas and how it's different kind of music than you have in the Western music. So the point is that Krishna is emphasizing the point that when you see with the eyes of knowledge, you see so much more. People come in to see the deities, and no one can deny the deities are very attractive, But when devotees who are really serving the deities, you see differently. And you really feel Krishna is pleased with you. I like to tell this story. There's a devotee in Miami. He's still there. He joined in '68, and he's still there. So it's almost 50 years. More than 50 years? Anyway. A very nice devotee named Dharma Das. And he was a president there for a while, and he's now, I think, it's still like a Pujari again. And he told this story when I was there, of how he was part of a team when he was, new devotee. He was initiated, and of course a Brahmin. He was working on the altar, but it's probably in the late 70s. And he was part of a team that prepared the milk sweets at night for the deities. They would cook at night the sandesh and the burfi, and there was something called pera. Have you ever had pera? Oh, she knows pera. So they would make that regularly, and of course the kira, the condensed milk. So it's a job, you have to do. So they would do it regularly. So one night he came to do his job, and no one else was there. There was, for one reason or another, they were ill, there was something going on, and he was all alone. So he had a big job, so he cooked all night until Mangalarti. And then he was finished on time, and he then went in to offer the sweets on the altar, He was carrying, so he looked at the deities and he was shocked. He never saw Krishna smiling so broadly, And he realized, this is the reciprocation, Krishna is giving back. So that's actually what bhakti is all about. You're engaging in the activities with the faith that Krishna is perceiving you, and you're trying your best to purify the heart and be strict in so many things. And then along the way, you get so many reciprocations. And oftentimes, the first reciprocation is that things that were troubling you on the material side, either some addiction or some grievance or something you couldn't get out of your head, somebody had insulted you, whatever, they don't bother you so much. You don't feel the pull. They have the cigarette, is the cigarette so difficult to give up, or whatever else, And you're able to follow the principle strictly because you're getting the higher taste, as Krishna explains in the second chapter. Vishayavanivartante narahara sedehina rasabharjam rasabhyasya param drishva nivartate. I remember when I first read that verse, I said, boy, that one really rings a bell. Vishaya means the objects of the senses. Vishaya vinivartante. I think Vishaya vinivartante. Nirahara sedehina. If a living entity stops consuming the things that he's addicted to, then they'll turn away from him. He'll have a little bit of strength of, okay, I'm, a little bit distant now, But the problem is, if you don't consume them, the soul, then they start to become, the addiction is reduced, the desire is reduced. But it's still there, you're doing it by your force of will. And then if you're in the wrong environment, you walk by a bar, all your old friends are in there, you say, oh, I just go and visit with them, I'll order some ginger ale. And you order some ginger ale, and before long, there's a beer. Okay, I'll take a little beer. What's a little bit? It can't hurt, you fell off the wagon, right? So the desire is still there. This is in the Jamil chapter too, in 6.1, about the holy name. But then he says, rasa bharjam rasabhyasa, but even the rasa, the taste is gone when you param drishva navartate. When you see, drishva is seeing, but it stands in for all of the senses. When you actually perceive the Lord through your senses, even the material senses, you're getting an idea and you're getting absorbed, then the very desire goes away. Then it's not a problem. You're no longer addicted at all, you see. And so that's an important first step we experience in Krishna consciousness. When you become more and more attracted to Krishna, you're sincerely chanting and serving and praying that you don't go off, and deviate. Then Krishna he's in the heart. He's perceiving all of that. He said, "Oh, this person is sincere. Let me help him get rid of these attachments and become much more attached to me." And that's why the Bhakti yogis can actually go back to Godhead. Where Krishna is not especially attracted to the Ashtanga yogis who are just doing it all on their own, and they're hoping, like, boy, I wish I could get that siddhi. I wish I could travel astrally, It's motivated, So they're never peaceful because even if they get the siddhis, they're not happy, Durvasa Muni's going everywhere, All right, so I saw we got a little deviated. Okay, we didn't get to text 16 and it's getting a little late. We finished 15, right? Yeah, go ahead.
So if we let down on the spiritual practice, then those addictions will come back, right? I would assume, right? I mean, that freedom from that addiction or that lust is not permanent, right?
Well, the thing is, they're always like, the tendency is there, and especially you'll go into your old habits and associate with that environment, those people or that environment, which was the first reason why you got addicted. So that's the danger. And that's why, falling away, what causes that? You're going along nicely, doing strictly, and what causes it is often offense. An offense to the holy name, especially offense to the devotees. Because it's association of devotees where you get the strength. Where and the most prominent example, kirtan. If you're ever in a kirtan, I'm telling you, if you go to Mayapur, a kirtan with 1,000 people, it's just incredibly powerful, It just lifts you up, and that's the dharma of the age. So that but if you are not able to associate with devotees, you don't feel comfortable amongst devotees, then you're much more vulnerable to Maya because it's just you and your own mind, and so that maintaining our ability and our eagerness to be in the association of devotees and to hear the Lord's message and to practice, that's the all important thing, so we can stay on the course and not get deviated and impeded. All right, go ahead, one more.
I understand how we are part and parcel of Krishna like a drop of water in the ocean, but if we are eternally part of Krishna, then does that mean we are also eternally part of his plan?
His plan?
Plan.
Well, nothing happens without Krishna's will. So yeah, there's a plan for us. The problem in our conditioned state is that we're not following the plan. So, but we have the plan set out. We know what the plan is, for everybody. So that knowledge and an environment in which we can perform the practices by which we get the spiritual strength to continue and allow Krishna or invite Krishna to cleanse our heart. That's what it really is. That is a very great chance, and we shouldn't blow it. Who knows, what will happen in this world? I mean, I don't want to get political, and we have to adjourn anyway. But, we do get affected by these things. Just look at Ukraine. Ukraine was had so many centers and there's still temples in Ukraine. They're doing book distribution right now in the middle of the war. They're so sincere. But I mean, everything changed, with this invasion and like that. So you don't know what's going to happen materially. And so we shouldn't waste any time. That's the whole idea. We have opportunity. We have our, health, basic health is the thing. And you have environment, and you have the books, and you have your facilities, so we should chant sincerely and try to make as much advancement as possible. And Krishna will help. That's the whole idea. He will help us by giving us the mentality, the attraction for him. This is what he bestows: attraction for him and proportionate aversion to material so-called sense gratification. So, all right, we got to adjourn. All right, one little poem. We can sum up the class. Sense pleasure is a dream. Krishna supreme. The aim is prem, and the way is the name. You're free to make T-shirts out of that, and you can sell them on the street. I don't care.
He stayed in Jagannath Puri temple, right?
Who? Maharaj? Lord Chaitanya? No, he stayed near the temple in a place called not Murari Gupta, Keshava. I forget the name. I haven't been reading the CC. But in the Gambhira, called the Gambhira. I was visiting.